We're going to call this meeting to order of the Urban Renewal Authority. Ask the secretary for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Dennehy?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Grantham? Absent. Commissioner Jaquez?
Present.
Commissioner Hamrick?
Here.
Commissioner Meisner?
Here.
Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Reeser?
Here.
Commissioner A. Smith?
Here.
Commissioner B. Smith?
Here.
Chairman Payne.
Here. I would ask everybody to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. At this time, I would ask if any citizens would like to speak to the Urban Renewal Authority on matters not on the agenda. Hearing none, we'll move on. Move on to the consent agenda. I would invite the city administrator to review the agenda and the consent agenda items.
For the consent agenda, we have the approval of minutes for the Urban Renewal Authority on January 6th. And the agenda as presented includes financial report, executive director report, discussion on the St. Cloud agreement, Skyline Steel funding, and an executive session.
Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
The financial report is obviously verbal and not written.
Right.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
What the heck? What's your title?
What?
Chairman.
Chairman, I move that we approve the,
We'll go with Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, President Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda and agenda as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dennehy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Jaquez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamrick?
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeser?
Aye.
Commissioner A. Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner B. Smith?
Aye.
Chairman Payne.
Aye. Invite the treasurer to give a financial report. As Commissioner Meisner said, this is verbal, I assume.
I would love to. However, I have been provided with no information, so
Yeah,
there will be no financial report this evening.
And I can provide a little detail on that. We don't have any transactions at this point, so there are no finances to report. We have set up a bank account, and the signing sheet for those who are responsible signers is circulating. So that concludes the financial report.
Thank you.
Excellent report, Commissioner Reeser.
Good job.
Okay. Executive Director report.
We have several projects we'll be discussing tonight, but I do want to let the commission know that Rick Harmon, the city's economic development manager, and myself have been working on some other projects that are in the pipeline, and we do have a pipeline of projects that we do intend to bring forward here in the near future. But there are some exciting economic development and urban renewal, removal of blight projects that will be coming forward here in the near future.
Okay. Any questions? Comments? Moving on. We'll do the discussion on the St. Cloud agreement. We have the agreement before us. We'll start off with the city administrator report on this.
So the St. Cloud agreement in front of you, this is the agreement that we did reach, the $1.2 million in tax increment financing. The report that you have, or the agreement that you have that Rick just handed out, has Exhibit B in it. The previous one that was emailed, we were waiting on that to come from the developer. This exhibit is consistent with what we had reported previously and what the consultants had previously done their analysis on. The difference is rather than a total, it's broken out into 3 separate phases. The agreement does recognize those 3 separate phases as well as distinct parts of the project. Stan Bullis, the owner of the developer, has signed the agreement, and this is put forth before the commission for your approval tonight.
Okay, any questions? Okay,
Yes, I do have a question there on, so Exhibit C, on the paragraph following number 3, the total amount of eligible costs is not filled in at this time, but that is the 1.2 million.
And maybe Catherine can respond to this, but it's my understanding that this particular form will be filled out as they're submitting their requests.
Yeah, I think he accidentally filled this out. This is just a form to use as they submit their request, and so it's just an accident, I think, that he's filled this out. So we'll put a clean one in there.
Thank you.
any other questions? Commissioner Meisner?
Well, I'll start on page 4. Item 2.2, it makes reference to causing a lien-free acquisition. What I'm assuming, without getting too in-depth, is they're talking about construction and what have you. How do you accomplish lien-free with a contractor? Corey, somebody.
I'm happy to answer the question. It is essentially a representation by the developer that they will pay their contractors so that no mechanics liens are placed on the project. So that's what that is, the developer's responsibility, their obligation, and if a mechanics lien were placed on the project, it would be a breach of the agreement.
Another question? Can I just keep
Okay,
going?
you just keep going.
Okay, so then moving on to 3.1, it mentions in here that unless waived in writing by the executive director, the following conditions precedent. Does that mean that the executive director's got the authority to make modifications to this agreement? It mentions that in a couple places.
It is limited in a couple of different places, yes. Now, having said that, I am confident that the executive director would not act outside his lane in waiving something without letting the board know. But there are sometimes minor issues that the executive director, in consultation with you all, can waive that wouldn't require a board meeting.
I just personally find that odd that the agreement has to be approved by council, but then we can turn around and have the executive director make modifications to that agreement, whether minor or major.
And that
I'll
may
give
work,
you-
that may work now, but what happens 15, 20 years from now?
Well,
bad
these two provisions, frankly, relate to the payment for the public improvements when the spigot is turned on for TIF. After the spigot's turned on, frankly, the executive director doesn't have any authority. This is really related to what might be, and I'll give you an example. We just talked about a mechanics lien. Let's say that there was a mechanics lien and someone placed, and it was an event of default. And then we received notification that the lien had been released. I think the executive director could notify you that that had happened. And then that event of default would have been cured without needing any board action.
Okay, I'll buy that for now, but to move on to page 5, under authority, I start getting confused when they talk about how we're giving payments back to the, whoever the other person is. I mean, at some point, it sounds like that we're doing some incremental payments, but then at one point it talks about that there aren't payments made until it's done. So how does that work?
So in order to be eligible for any payment, a discrete phase of eligible improvements has to be completed.
Right, okay.
But until increment is generated from the project, there's no money to pay them. And so if you look at section 6.2, if for some reason property tax increment isn't generated, then there's no money to pay the developer. The authority's payment obligation is contingent on increment being generated. And so that means that there's a total amount that's in the agreement that is subject to being paid from increment, or the expiration of time to 2036. But the only way the developer gets paid is if A, they have completed the improvements, and B, increment is being generated.
And is that particular process one of those areas that can be altered by the executive director?
Absolutely not.
But is that not under that's under 5.1 then?
Correct. So the only thing in that context that the executive director theoretically under 3.1 could waive is if they wanted to change one of the discrete phases of the eligible improvements. So let's say there was a $500,000 phase of improvements, and the developer wanted to have a discrete phase that was $300,000. That's something that could be looked at by the executive director. But that's it.
Is that what you're saying in paragraph 2 on page 6? Where it makes reference to 3.1, which 3.1 is talking about the authority of the executive director to make that change?
Right.
Okay, do you have some more?
I do, but
Okay. I'm going to let you finish,
go ahead.
Commissioner Meisner, with all yours, then we'll move on to other folks.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, I'll go ahead. Anybody else got anything?
I was just gonna say, if there's minor changes that need to be made, we don't wanna have to make a developer wait an entire month for URA to meet together to approve a minor change, because time is money and they've gotta take care of business, and this is part of that being business friendly. I feel comfortable that our attorneys approve of this and that it's solid.
Okay. One thing I have on the very last thing, number 34, page 13, no waiver of immunity. With us being elected officials at different entities, does our governmental immunity follow us onto this board from our entities that we're a part of?
The no waiver of immunity is for your protection. You have governmental immunity as board members of this entity. So this entity is a public entity within the meaning of the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act. And so that no waiver of immunity is for the benefit of you all as board members.
Okay, so then back on page 11, number 19, it seems a little bit redundant for us, which I guess is just another added layer of protection. Is that how I'm reading this?
Well, this is non-liability of you all. And then paragraph 34 that you just referenced basically is telling the developer that we are immune.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear, that our immunity followed us here. I mean, okay, that's all I want to know. Okay, anybody got anything else? That made me feel a lot better. Anybody got any other questions? Go ahead.
So you mentioned this to start with, but on Exhibit C, I see it signed and dated, but obviously the dollar amount, which is a minor issue, doesn't seem to be filled in.
It's
Yeah.
not supposed to be signed. He accidentally signed it. It's just a form it's just a form exhibit to the agreement. It's supposed to be blank right now until he submits it and actually requests payment. So it's just an accident that it's executed.
Does he slap his hands?
So we're approving it beforehand?
No, so every time every time they're requested money to be reimbursed, they will fill out this form and
Oh,
submit it.
okay.
Yeah, so he just,
So this would be like a phase thing?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
That makes sense.
Makes sense now.
Okay. Anybody got any other questions and/or comments? Everybody's,
No.
nope, Dolly, you good? Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Gonzalez. Okay, we've all read over it. We've had questions here. I'm satisfied with it. I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Smith.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the redevelopment agreement with Unbridled Holdings.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dennehy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Jaquez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamrick?
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeser?
Aye.
Commissioner A. Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner B. Smith?
Aye.
Chairman Payne?
Aye. Motion carries. Well done. Good questions.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to the Skyline Steel funding for sewer line.
All right, Chairman and Commissioners, attached you have the tabulation of the bid that the city did for Skyline Steel to install the sewer main. This is a catalyst project that we're working on, and while the city will be doing the work, the funding would be coming from the Urban Renewal Authority. If you remember, we completed a cooperation agreement between the Urban Renewal Authority and the city to transfer $500,000, and some of the funding for that would actually come from that cooperation agreement. The project is expected to be about $142,000. And we do have some additional contingency and some additional possible pump work that we'd have to do. We won't know until we actually start excavating whether or not that additional pumping would need to be completed. The grand total would be $195,965. We're anticipating that the urban renewals portion of that would be right around 130 plus the possible pumping. We have been in discussions with the adjacent property owner, the ice plant, and they are interested in tagging on with this project, and they would be a responsible party as far as participating with some of the cost sharing. And we are working on an agreement with them as well. So what we're looking for tonight is to approve the funding so we can go ahead and get started on the installation of the the sewer main. There is a time element to this because of the river and the water rising in the spring. We're trying to get this project done in the right now, actually. We would start by the end of the month in order to get this project completed before the river rises too much and affects the ability of the contractor to do that work. We were originally anticipating that this project would be about $300,000. We received very favorable bid from Avalanche Excavating, and a lot of that has to do with the timing of this and where it falls in the season, and the ability for them to fill a hole in their scheduling.
So what is your recommendation on the dollar amount? I see two different here's with the 142, 150, or the 195, 965.
So we would request 195, 965 and 55 cents. And within the urban renewal budget, we did budget for money to come back through a cooperation agreement with the adjacent property owner.
And so if a neighbor puts in with this, then that our 195,000 would be reduced.
Yeah, and we will only complete phase 2 if we have a signed cooperation agreement with the adjacent property owner.
Okay. I see that this was not reviewed by legal. Is that normal course of action, that bids like this not reviewed by legal?
So this is just an approval of the funding from urban renewal when it went through the city process. I don't know that that was reviewed by legal either.
No, we don't review bids for the city typically.
Just on bids like this?
Yeah, not on bids like this.
Yeah,
We can, it's just not been a practice here for us to do that, so.
Yeah, typically when we enter into those contracts on the city side, we're using a form agreement that has already been approved by the city attorney.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? I'll go with Commissioner Smith first.
Yeah, stir down there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that putting this sewer line in at the riverfront, it is the big missing key for the development in this area. There have been developers come look, but without sanitation already there, it's a deal killer. And so this is a really important part of having the sewer up and running and ready to go, both for Skyline Steel and also for the potential development of the ice plant if they choose to tag along. I know they've been talking for at least 5 years with the city for making this move along, and I'm just excited that our URA is here and that we can finally make it possible.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but I don't see anything in everything we have. Has there been any kind of discussion? Because I'm looking at it, I'm a developer. I want to come down there and do something. My biggest concern is, what are you going to do with all those tanks there for the gasoline place that I have to go through before I can get to my project? What, if any, kind of discussions have been done with regards to eliminating, in my opinion, that eyesore that would hamper, if I'm a developer, for me to want to come in there and spend a lot of money and still have to deal with that project?
Yeah, we've been having discussions with the Acorn Petroleum folks for a couple of years now. Actually, we had a discussion with them yesterday. They came up and met with us in person, and we're continuing to work on some type of arrangement that would see them relocated to another site.
Okay. Commissioner Meisner.
So you had mentioned phase 2 or whatever it is. I'm assuming that has absolutely no impact on the function of our portion, whether they do or do not participate.
That's correct. So we can complete our portion independent of phase 2, but our portion is designed that they can tap in later if they would like to.
Right. And then this is only sewer, doesn't include any stormwater.
That is correct. This is only sanitation sewer.
Is that an issue?
Stormwater?
Right.
No, not a bit.
Good job. I like that.
So stormwater facilities will have to be addressed when the developer, and based on the development that comes in.
Oh, you meant for that project, okay.
I mean, what's the difference?
Isn't it
And
based off
cost.
impervious surface?
There's no plan yet.
Yeah, we don't know what the grading or any of that is going to be for the site. We don't know how much
Okay.
impervious surface or parking. So, all of that would have to be done when they submit civils for the development.
Okay, any other questions? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Ryan, so we're talking about using out of the $500,000 seed money that the city provided to the URA, the $195,000. Will the city be repaid for that? I'm unclear on that. Would you tell me about that a little bit, please?
So the cooperation agreement between the city and the Urban Renewal Authority for the 500,000 has a repayment clause
Right.
in it. So over time, after the urban renewal starts to generate increment, there will be repayment from the urban renewal back to the city. That issue has already come before the commission and been approved.
Right.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, so we need to have a motion to move forward with this. It's been proposed that we approve $195,965.55. I would recommend that we would stick with that figure, not to exceed, if everybody would agree with that statement. And I will entertain a motion.
Whatever.
No,
You gonna do
no, I was gonna say, what was that amount again?
195,
Go ahead.
965?
Thanks.
55.
50 cents. Oh, 55, thanks.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve bid 13-21 to Avalanche Excavating to Canyon City in the amount not to exceed $195,965.55.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dennehy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Jaquez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamrick?
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeser?
Aye.
Commissioner A. Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner B. Smith?
Aye.
Chairman Payne.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, that is all for the regular session, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I believe we need a motion to go into executive session, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Mr.
Commissioner.
Chair, I move that the Urban Renewal Authority enter into executive session for the purpose to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop a strategy for negotiations, and/or instruct negotiators pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024E regarding the Fremont National Bank and Pharisee Ford.
I second.
Sorry, you need to motion to go into both of those sessions at one time. We don't come back out and motion to go back in for the second one. So you motion to go into executive session for the Fremont Bank matter and the Pharisee Ford matter.
So A and B both at the
Yes.
same time, that makes sense? You want to amend your motion, please?
What am I amending? I said,
You're going into
That's
B
what I
also.
thought he said.
He said
Oh, I
and.
only heard the first
oh,
one.
there's another,
He said
Okay,
and.
another
I'm sorry,
script.
Jim.
You
Yep.
said Fremont National Bank.
I said
and
Fremont
Pharisee.
National Bank and Pharisee Ford.
I apologize. I didn't hear Pharisee Ford.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session on items A and B. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dennehy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Jaquez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamrick?
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeser?
Aye.
Commissioner A. Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner B. Smith?
Aye.
Chairman Payne.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right.
We will now move into executive session.